The Valorian Empire had ruled 600 worlds for 12,000 years. Their soldiers were giants, standing 8 feet tall with skin like black metal. Their armor could stop any weapon. Their ships filled the skies of every planet they conquered. No species had ever defeated them. No species had even come close. Commander Zorath stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the small blue planet on his screen. His scouts had told him about this world. They called it Earth. The creatures who lived there called themselves humans. They were small, weak, and had only recently learned to leave their own planet. They would be easy to conquer. Zorath smiled with his mouth full of sharp teeth. This would be simple. The diplomatic ship landed at a human military base in a place called Camp Pendleton. Zorath had asked to meet the human warriors first. This was how it always worked. He would show them how powerful the Valorians were, and they would kneel. Every species kneeled eventually. Corporal Danny Martinez stood with his squad and watched the alien ship come down from the sky. He was 23 years old, born in a small town in Texas. He had joined the Marines right after high school and had fought in 2 wars overseas. He knew what danger felt like. He knew what it meant when something was wrong. Right now, everything felt wrong. The alien that walked out of the ship was the biggest thing Danny had ever seen. He had to look up to see its face. 4 eyes looked back at him, arranged in a diamond shape. The skin was black and shiny like glass. The mouth was filled with teeth that looked like they were made for eating meat. Behind Danny, his friend Private Lisa Nguyen whispered quietly, "That thing is huge." "Stay quiet," said Sergeant Gary Cole. But Danny could hear that even the sergeant was nervous. The alien walked toward them. 4 guards followed behind it, carrying weapons that glowed with strange light. The alien stopped right in front of Danny's squad. It spoke in a language that sounded like metal scraping against metal. A moment later, a device around its neck translated the words into English. "I am Commander Zorath of the Valorian Empire. Your world belongs to us now. Get on your knees, and you will be allowed to serve us." Nobody moved. Nobody kneeled. Colonel Patricia Wells stepped forward. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been a Marine for 30 years and had seen many things. She was not afraid. "I am Colonel Wells," she said. "United States Marine Corps. I think there has been a mistake. This planet is not available for conquest." Zorath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You do not understand, little creature. This is not a discussion." He pointed at the Marines. "These are your warriors? They are small. They are weak. They are nothing." He walked slowly down the line, looking at each Marine like they were animals. When he reached Danny, he stopped. "This one," Zorath said. "It looks at me without fear." How funny. Danny kept his eyes forward. His heart was beating fast, but he did not let it show on his face. Colonel Wells had told them not to attack unless they were attacked first. So he stood still and waited. Zorath leaned closer. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "Do you think you could hurt me, little creature? Do you think your weak weapons could get through my armor? Do you think your soft body could survive even one hit from me?" Danny said nothing. "Answer me, insect." Danny spoke in a flat, calm voice. "Sir, I think you should step back." Zorath's 4 eyes blinked one after another. Then, faster than Danny could see, the alien raised his huge hand and slapped Danny across the face. The blow was meant to kill. It was meant to break bones and destroy flesh. It was meant to show everyone watching that the Valorians were gods and the humans were nothing. Danny's head snapped to the side. Blood flew from his mouth. For 1 second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Danny turned his head back to face Zorath. Blood ran down his chin from his split lip. And he smiled. "That all you got?" 2 seconds. That was all it took Dot in those 2 seconds. Danny's hand moved to his belt. His fingers found the handle of his Ka-Bar combat knife. He pulled it from its holder. He stepped forward, inside the reach of Zoroth's long arms, and he drove the 7-inch blade straight through the alien's left eye and into its brain. The translator device made one last burst of noise. Then Zoroth's body fell to the ground with a crash that shook the earth. His skull was destroyed. The part that mattered, anyway. The Valorian guards raised their weapons to fire, but they never got the chance. The Marines around Danny were already moving. Guns came up. Triggers were pulled. The sound of gunfire filled the air. 8 seconds later, every alien on the ground was dead. Colonel Wells looked at the bodies. Then she looked at Danny, who was cleaning his knife on his uniform like nothing had happened. His hands were steady. His face was calm. "Well," she said quietly, "I think we just started a war." Danny put his knife back in its holder. "He hit me first, ma'am." Lisa ran over to him. "Danny, are you crazy? That thing was 8 feet tall." "Size doesn't matter," Danny said. He touched his split lip and winced. He was slow, and he didn't think I would fight back. That was his mistake. Sergeant Cole was already on the radio, calling for backup, calling for medical teams, calling for anyone who could help them figure out what to do next. The world had changed in the last 30 seconds. Everything humanity knew about their place in the universe had been turned upside down. They were not alone. There were aliens. And those aliens wanted to conquer Earth, but something else had changed too. Something important? A human had just killed one of the most powerful warriors in the galaxy with nothing but a knife and 2 seconds of time. The aliens were bigger. They were stronger. They had better technology. But they could die as Danny Martinez stood there with blood on his face and a calm look in his eyes. The universe learned a lesson it would never forget. Humans were small. Humans were weak. Humans were primitive. And humans were absolutely terrifying. Within hours, the video of what happened at Camp Pendleton was everywhere. Every television, every computer, every phone on Earth showed the same thing. An alien giant slapping a young Marine. That Marine smiling. And then, in 2 seconds, ending the alien's life. The world watched. The world remembered. And the world began to prepare. Because everyone knew the truth. This was not the end. This was just the beginning. The Valorians would come back. They would come back with more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. They would come back angry, and humanity would be waiting for them. The news spread across Earth like fire. Within 1 day, every government on the planet was meeting emergency sessions. Within 1 week, countries that had been enemies for centuries were working together. The United Nations created the Earth Defense Coalition, and for the first time in history, humanity spoke with one voice. That voice said, "We will not kneel." But Earth was not the only place paying attention. Across the galaxy, billions of eyes were watching. Ambassador Keela of the Sindari Collective had been doing diplomatic work for 40 years. She had seen empires grow and fall. She had helped make peace between species that had been fighting for thousands of years. She knew how to recognize the moments that changed. Everything. This was one of those moments. She sat in her office on the Sindari homeworld and watched the video from Camp Pendleton for the 100th time. The human soldier taking the hit. The blood flying from his mouth. And then that smile. That terrible, beautiful smile. And then his hand moving, the knife flashing, and the great Commander Zoroth falling dead on the ground. "This is very interesting," she said to her young assistant, a Sindari named Tavros. "The Valorians have been telling everyone for thousands of years that they cannot be beaten. And now a single human with a knife has proven them wrong." Tavros did not seem impressed. "The humans are still primitive, Ambassador. Their technology is very far behind the Empire. They cannot win a real war. Keela shook her head slowly. Technology can be learned. It can be bought. It can be stolen. But what that human soldier showed cannot be taught. She pointed at the frozen image on her screen, at Danny Martinez's bloody smile. Look at his eyes, Tavros. He knew he might die. He did not care. He fought anyway. That is something the Valorians have never seen before. She made her decision quickly. Contact the human governments. Tell them the Sindari Collective wants to be friends. All across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. The Thelosian Merchant Guild saw a chance to make money. The Garth Dominion saw a possible partner against their old enemies. The mysterious beings called the Architects, who had not talked to anyone for 10,000 years, sent a single message to Earth. It said only, "We are watching." On Earth, humanity was getting ready for war. Danny Martinez had been promoted to sergeant. He was now famous, the most famous person on the planet. His face was on every news channel. His name was on everyone's lips. People made shirts with his picture. Musicians wrote songs about him. 2 seconds became the phrase that everyone used when they wanted to talk about fighting back. Danny hated all of it. He had done what any Marine would do. He had been attacked, and he had responded. That was all. He did not feel like a hero. He just felt like a soldier who had done his job. One night, he sat on the roof of his barracks with Lisa, looking up at the stars. The same stars that had always seemed so peaceful now seemed threatening. Somewhere up there, an empire was getting ready to come for them. You know they will come back, Danny said quietly. The Valorians. This is not over. Lisa nodded. She had read the intelligence reports. Everyone had. They are building a fleet. The biggest one they have ever made. 10,000 ships, maybe more. Danny thought about that. 10,000 ships. Each one bigger and more powerful than anything Earth had. And what do we have? A few hundred fighters? Some missiles? Pretty much. Danny was quiet for a long time. The stars twinkled above them, cold and distant. Then, we need to find a way to make things more fair. That was when Colonel Wells found them. She climbed up to the roof with a woman Danny had never seen before. The woman wore civilian clothes and had the look of someone who spent more time in laboratories than in the field. Sergeant Martinez, the woman said. I am Dr. Amanda Price. I work for the Department of Defense. How would you like to help us build some new weapons? Danny looked at her carefully. What kind of weapons? Dr. Price smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had spent her whole life figuring out new ways to kill things. The kind that will make the Valorians wish they had never heard of Earth. Over the next few months, Danny worked with Dr. Price and her team. He was not a scientist, but he understood combat. He understood what soldiers needed to survive and win. And he understood something that the scientists did not. The Valorians were not unbeatable. They just thought they were. That is their weakness, Danny explained during one meeting. They have been winning for so long that they have forgotten how to lose. They expect everyone to fight the same way. Line up your ships, shoot at each other. Whoever has more firepower wins. But that is not how we fight. Dr. Price leaned forward, interested. How do you fight, Sergeant? Danny remembered 100 different battles. The ambushes in the desert. The house-to-house fighting in ruined cities. The long nights waiting for an enemy that might come from any direction. We fight dirty, he said. We hide. We trick. We wait for the perfect moment, and then we hit hard and fast. We do not fight fair, because fair fighting gets you killed. We fight to win. Dr. Price nodded slowly. Then, that is exactly what we will teach the rest of humanity to do. The work continued. New weapons were designed. New strategies were created. Soldiers from every country on Earth trained together, learning to fight as one force. The old rivalries and hatreds were pushed aside. There would be time for those later, if they survived, and somewhere out in the galaxy. The Valorian fleet grew larger every day. Grand Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the images of his dead son. Zorath had been arrogant and cruel, but he had been Vorath's blood, his only child. And now he was dead, killed by a primitive creature with a piece of sharpened metal. How long until the fleet is ready? Vorath asked. 3 months, Grand Admiral. Vorath's 4 eyes burned with hatred. Make it 2. I want to see their world burn. I want to hear their children scream. I want to make them understand what it means to challenge the Valorian Empire. His officers nodded and hurried to obey. The clock was ticking. The greatest fleet in galactic history was coming for Earth, coming for revenge, coming to wipe humanity from existence, and on a small blue planet. A young sergeant with a split lip and a calm smile was helping to build the weapons that would meet them. The galaxy watched and waited. The war was coming. Dr. Amanda Price stood in front of a room full of generals, scientists, and politicians. Behind her, a large screen showed pictures and diagrams that made some of the people in the room feel sick. Others leaned forward with hungry eyes. The problem, she said, is that we have been thinking about this the wrong way. She pressed a button, and the screen showed a comparison between a human and a Valorian. The alien was more than twice as tall. Its muscles were 5 times as strong. Its armor could stop bullets, lasers, and small explosions. On paper, we cannot win. They are bigger, stronger, faster, and they have technology thousands of years ahead of ours. If we try to fight them the normal way, ship against ship, soldier against soldier, we will lose. She paused and looked around the room. But we are not going to fight the normal way. The screen changed again. Now it showed pictures from human history. Cavemen hunting mammoths with spears. Roman soldiers building walls and traps. Guerrilla fighters hiding in jungles and mountains. Snipers waiting for days without moving for a single perfect shot. Humans have never been the biggest or the strongest, Dr. Price continued. But we are still here. We have killed everything that ever tried to kill us. Mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, each other. We survived because we learned to fight smart. We learned to use our brains instead of our muscles. We learned to cheat. She smiled that cold smile of hers. And now we are going to cheat on a galactic scale. Over the following weeks, Dr. Price showed them what she meant. The first weapon was called the Widow's Web. It was made of tiny machines, each one smaller than a grain of sand. These machines could float through the air, get into enemy ships through tiny cracks, and then do terrible things. They could destroy equipment. They could poison air supplies. They could kill soldiers in their sleep without making a sound. The Valorians have never seen anything like this, Dr. Price explained. Their enemies have always fought them face to face. They will not know how to defend against something they cannot see. The second weapon was called Ghost Protocol. It was a system that could make human ships invisible to sensors. But it did more than that. It could also create fake images of ships that were not really there. One human ship could look like 10 ships, or 100, or 1,000. They will not know what is real and what is not, Dr. Price said. They will waste their weapons shooting at shadows while our real ships attack from unexpected directions. The third weapon was simply called the Big Guns. These were massive railguns built on the moon, on Mars, and on several large asteroids. They could shoot pieces of metal at speeds so fast that nothing could stop them. No shield, no armor, nothing. If you throw a rock fast enough, Dr. Price explained, it hits harder than any bomb. These guns can hit targets millions of miles away. The Valorians will die before they even know they are under attack. But the last weapon was the most important. Dr. Price called it the Martinez Protocol. Danny sat in a medical chair while doctors connected wires to his head and arms. He did not like this part. The needles hurt. The machines made strange noises. But he understood why it was necessary. "We cannot make you as strong as a Valorian," Dr. Price told him. "Their bodies are simply better than ours. But we can make your mind faster. We can improve your reflexes. We can help your eyes see more and your ears hear more. And we can connect you to other soldiers so that you think and fight as one unit." The process took 3 days. 3 days of pain, of strange dreams, a feeling like his brain was being taken apart and put back together differently. When it was over, Danny opened his eyes and the world looked different. Everything was clearer, sharper. He could see tiny details he had never noticed before. He could hear sounds from far away. And in his mind, he could feel the presence of the other soldiers who had gone through the same process. He knew where they were. He knew what they were thinking. They were connected. Colonel Wells came to see him after he woke up. She had been promoted to general now, in charge of all Earth's ground forces. "How do you feel, Sergeant?" Danny sat up slowly. His body felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. But also better, faster, more alive. "I feel like I did in those 2 seconds," he said. "When I killed Zorth. Everything was so clear. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I could see every move before it happened." He looked at his hands. They were the same hands he had always had. But now they felt like weapons. "Now I feel like that all the time." General Wells nodded. "Good, because we are going to need you. Intelligence says the Valorian fleet will be here in 6 weeks. 12,000 ships. More firepower than we can imagine." Danny stood up. His legs were steady. His mind was clear. "Then we better get ready." He spent the next 6 weeks training. Training with the other enhanced soldiers. Training with the new weapons. Training to fight in ways that no one had ever fought before. They learned to work together without speaking. They learned to move through enemy ships like ghosts. They learned 100 ways to kill and 1,000 ways to survive. Lisa was one of the volunteers for the enhancement program. So was Sergeant Cole and dozens of other Marines Danny had served with. They became something new, something more than human, something dangerous. "Do you ever wonder if we are still ourselves?" Lisa asked one night after a particularly hard training session. "After everything they did to our brains?" Danny thought about it. "I am still Danny Martinez from Texas. I still miss my mother's cooking. I still hate getting up early. I still think you talk too much." Lisa punched his arm. "Jerk." He smiled. "But now I am Danny Martinez, who can kill a Valorian with his bare hands. I think that is a fair trade." On the day before the fleet arrived, General Wells gathered all the enhanced soldiers together. 300 men and women from every country on Earth. They stood in perfect lines, their minds linked, their bodies ready. "Tomorrow," General Wells said, "the Valorians come to destroy us. They think we are weak. They think we will break. They think they can burn our world and kill our people and erase us from history." She paused and looked at each of them. "Show them how wrong they are." Danny felt the agreement ripple through the mental link. 300 soldiers, thinking as one, ready to fight, ready to die, ready to prove that humanity was worth more than the Valorians had ever imagined. The fleet would arrive tomorrow. And humanity would be waiting. Grand Admiral Voreth's head was displayed in the United Nations building. Some people thought this was wrong. They called it barbaric, uncivilized, cruel. But the leaders of Earth had decided to send a message to the galaxy. A message that everyone would understand. We do not bow. We do not break. And if you come for us, we will end you. The Valorian Empire, for the first time in 12,000 years of conquest, asked for peace. They did not have a choice. Their greatest fleet had been destroyed. Their most powerful admiral was dead. And the humans had made it clear that they could do much worse if they wanted to. The peace terms were simple. The Valorians would leave human space forever. They would pay for the damage their invasion had caused. And they would free any species under their control that wanted to join Earth's new alliance. 17 species chose to leave the Empire and seek protection from humanity. 17 worlds, billions of beings, all deciding that they would rather trust the violent newcomers than stay under Valorian rule. The galaxy watched in amazement. The greatest military power in known space had been beaten by a species that most people had never even heard of before. A species that had been fighting each other with sticks and stones. Just a few thousand years ago, everything had changed. Ambassador Keela of the Sindari Collective arrived on Earth 6 months after the war ended. Her ship landed in New York City, in front of a building that had once been used for business, but was now the headquarters of Earth's new government. General Patricia Wells met her at the landing pad. The general looked tired. She had been working constantly since the war ended, building new defenses, training new soldiers, preparing for threats that might come from any direction. But she still found time to greet important visitors. "Ambassador Keela," she said, "welcome to Earth." Keela was tall and thin, with blue skin and large dark eyes. She moved with the grace of someone who had spent decades learning to be diplomatic. "General Wells, thank you for receiving me." They walked through the building together, past guards and workers, past screens showing news from around the world and beyond. Keela looked at everything with curiosity. "You have done something remarkable," she said finally. "You have shown the galaxy that power alone is not enough, that even the mightiest can fall if they become too proud." General Wells nodded. "We did not want this war. We do not want it to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone. And yet you will not be." Keela stopped and turned to face the general. "You have proven yourselves too dangerous to ignore. Other empires will come, testing your strength, trying to claim your world. You have painted a target on your planet. Then we will deal with them the same way we dealt with the Valorians." Keela smiled. It was a strange expression on her alien face, but somehow it felt friendly. "I believe you will. And that, General Wells, is why I am here. The Sindari Collective would like to offer you an alliance. Not because we fear you, but because we respect you. We have seen what you can do when you are angry. We would like to see what you can do when you are at peace." The alliance was signed 3 months later. It was the beginning of a new era for humanity. Not as a conquered species, not as servants or slaves, but as equals among the stars. Our alliances followed. The Thelosian merchants opened trade routes to Earth. The Korath Dominion sent military advisors to learn human tactics. Even the mysterious architects, who had been silent for 10,000 years, sent representatives to meet with Earth's leaders. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and everyone wanted to know them. Sergeant Danny Martinez retired from active service 1 year after the war. He had been offered promotions, medals, statues in his honor. He had turned them all down. "I am just a soldier," he told the reporters who followed him everywhere. "I did my job. Now I want to go home." Home was a small house in Texas, not far from where he had grown up. His mother still lived there, in the same house where Danny had been a child. She made him his favorite food on the day he arrived, and they sat on the porch together watching the sunset. "I saw you on the news," his mother said. "Every day for a year, my son on the news. The hero of Earth." Danny shook his head. "I am not a hero, Mama. I just did what I had to do." His mother looked at him with the same eyes he had inherited, brown and warm and full of love. You saved the world, Danny, you and the others like you. If that is not a hero, I do not know what is. Danny did not argue. He just sat there, eating his mother's cooking, feeling the warm Texas air on his face, and thinking about everything that had happened. Lisa came to visit a few weeks later. She had been promoted to captain and was now training the next generation of enhanced soldiers. Her mind was still linked to Danny's, even across the distance. They could feel each other's presence like a gentle hum at the back of their thoughts. You know they want you to come back, she said. There are new threats, new enemies. They need people like us. Danny nodded. I know, and maybe someday I will. But not yet. I spent years fighting. I need some time to remember what peace feels like. Lisa understood. She stayed for a few days, and they talked about old times, about friends they had lost, about the future they had won. Then she left, back to her duties, back to protecting the world they had almost died to save. Danny stayed on his mother's porch and watched the stars. Sometimes. Late at night, when the sky was clear and the galaxy stretched out above him like a river of light, Danny would think about Commander Zorth, about that slap that had started everything, about those 2 seconds that had changed human history. He did not feel proud. He did not feel like a hero. He just felt like a man who had done what needed to be done. But he also felt something else. A quiet satisfaction. A knowledge that humanity had proven itself. That the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humans were small. Humans were weak. Humans lived on a tiny planet in an unimportant corner of the galaxy. But humans did not give up. Humans did not surrender. And when something tried to hurt them, humans fought back with everything they had. The Valorians had come to conquer. They had found something very different. Something that scared them more than any weapon or army. They had found a species that smiled when it was hit. That laughed in the face of death. That turned pain into anger and anger into victory. They had found humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. Danny looked up at the stars one last time, then went inside to help his mother with dinner. The war was over. The future was uncertain. But for now, at least, there was peace. And that was enough, for now. The Valorian fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning. 12,000 ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. More warships than had ever been gathered in one place in galactic history. Each ship was massive, built for war, carrying weapons that could crack planets in half. At the front of the fleet flew the flagship of Grand Admiral Vorath, father of the commander that Danny Martinez had killed with a knife. Vorath stood on his bridge and looked at the small, blue planet in the distance, Earth, home of the creatures that had murdered his son, home of the species that had dared to defy the Valorian Empire. Send the message, he commanded. The transmission went out on every frequency, translated into every human language. Every television and radio and phone on Earth carried Vorath's words. Humans, you have killed a commander of the Valorian Empire. For this crime, your species will be erased from existence. Your world will burn. Your children will die screaming. And when we are finished, no one will remember that you ever existed. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Earth's response came from General Patricia Wells. Admiral Vorath, you are welcome to try. But I should warn you about something. We have been killing things bigger than us since we lived in caves. You are not special. Then she ended the transmission. The battle began. The Valorian fleet started moving toward Earth. 12,000 ships in perfect formation. A wall of metal and fire that seemed impossible to stop. They moved with confidence. They had done this hundreds of times before. They knew how these things went. They did not know about Project Big Guns. The railguns on the moon fired first. Then Mars. Then the asteroid bases. Huge pieces of metal shot through space at incredible speeds, faster than anything the Valorians had ever seen. There was no warning, no time to dodge, no shield strong enough to stop them. 300 Valorian ships exploded in the first 10 seconds. Then 300 more. The formation broke as captains tried to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The projectiles kept coming, turning warships into clouds of burning debris. On his flagship, Vorath stared at his screens in shock. This was not possible. No primitive species should have weapons like this. No one should be able to do this much damage so quickly. "Spread the fleet," he shouted. "Do not give them easy targets." The Valorian ships scattered, moving apart, so the railguns could not hit multiple targets at once. It was a smart move. The right move. It was exactly what the humans had expected. The Ghost Protocol activated. Suddenly, the Valorian sensors went crazy. Instead of a few hundred human ships, they now showed thousands, tens of thousands. Ships everywhere, surrounding the scattered Valorian fleet. Appearing out of nowhere, the Valorians opened fire, but their weapons hit nothing. The targets were not real. They were ghosts, images created by human technology to confuse and distract. And while the Valorians wasted their ammunition shooting at shadows, the real human ships attacked. They came from unexpected angles, from above and below, from behind asteroids and out of the darkness between planets. They did not try to destroy the Valorian ships with firepower. They aimed for engines, for weapon systems, for the parts of the ships that kept them running. They crippled instead of killed, leaving damaged ships drifting in space, blocking the paths of the ships behind them. The battle became chaos. Valorian captains could not tell real enemies from fake ones. They could not coordinate with each other because the humans were jamming their communications. They could not even run because they did not know which way was safe. And then the Widow's web began its work. The tiny machines had been spreading through the Valorian fleet for hours, carried on debris, floating through space, finding their way into ships through cracks and vents. Now they activated. On hundreds of ships, systems began to fail. Lights went out. Air filters stopped working. Soldiers collapsed as poison filled their lungs. Vorath watched his fleet dying and felt something he had never felt before in his long life of conquest. Fear. Retreat. He ordered. All ships, fall back and regroup. But the humans did not let them retreat. They followed, harassing, attacking, never giving the Valorians a moment to rest. Every time the alien ships tried to form up, human attacks scattered them again. Every time they tried to communicate, human jammers blocked their signals. The battle lasted 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting. 3 days of human ships darting in and out of the Valorian formation like wolves attacking a herd. 3 days of the greatest military power in the galaxy being torn apart by a species they had considered primitive. On the 3rd day, Vorath made his decision. He had lost half his fleet. His soldiers were exhausted and terrified. But he still had enough ships to destroy Earth. If he could just reach the planet, he could burn it to ashes. Then it would not matter how many ships he had lost. The war would be over. All remaining ships, he commanded, attack Earth directly. Everything we have. Full speed. The surviving Valorian fleet formed up for one final charge. 5,000 ships, still more than enough to destroy a planet, drove toward Earth with every weapon ready to fire. They were met by the Martinez Protocol. 300 single-person ships launched from Earth's defense stations. They were tiny compared to the Valorian warships, barely visible on sensors. Each one carried a single enhanced soldier, connected to the others through the neural link, thinking and fighting as one mind. Danny Martinez led them, His ship dove toward the Valorian flagship like a bullet. Other enhanced soldiers followed, spreading out to attack different targets. They did not try to fight the warships with weapons. Their ships were too small for that dot. Instead, they did something the Valorians never expected. They boarded. Danny's ship crashed through the hull of the flagship, and he was running before it stopped moving. His enhanced body moved faster than any normal human could. His linked mind knew exactly where every enemy was. His hands held weapons that Dr. Price had designed specifically for killing. VELORINS. The alien soldiers tried to stop him. They failed. Danny moved through them like a storm. Too fast to hit, too deadly to survive. Behind him, other enhanced soldiers were doing the same thing on dozens of other ships. They cut through corridors, destroyed control rooms, killed officers and crew with terrible efficiency, on ship after ship. The Valorians found themselves fighting enemies they could not see, could not catch, could not kill. Enemies that moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. Enemies that seemed to know what they would do before they did it. Danny fought his way to the bridge of the flagship. The doors were locked and guarded by 50 of Varath's best soldiers. It did not matter. Danny went through them in less than a minute, leaving bodies behind him like fallen leaves. The doors opened, and Danny stepped onto the bridge. Grand Admiral Varath stood there, surrounded by the last of his guards. He was old for a Valorian, but still massive and strong. His 4 eyes burned with hatred as he looked at the small human covered in the blood of his soldiers. "You," Varath said. "You are the one who killed my son." Danny nodded. "He hit me. I hit him back. That is how it works where I come from." Varath's guards raised their weapons, but Varath held up a hand to stop them. "No, this one is mine." He walked toward Danny, each step shaking the deck. "I have killed thousands of warriors from dozens of species. I have crushed armies beneath my feet. What do you think you can do against me, little human?" Danny smiled. It was the same smile he had given Zorth, the same smile that had become famous across the galaxy. "I think I can show you what 2 seconds feels like." Varath roared and attacked. 2 seconds later, it was over. Danny stood over the body of the Grand Admiral, breathing hard, his knife dripping with alien blood. Around him, the bridge crew stared in shocked silence. "Your admiral is dead," Danny said quietly. "Your fleet is broken. This war is over. Surrender now, and you can live. Keep fighting, and you will all end up like him." The Valorians surrendered. Across the solar system, on ship after ship, the same scene repeated. Enhanced soldiers standing over defeated enemies. The mightiest fleet in galactic history, brought to its knees by a species that had been using stone tools just 100,000 years ago. Earth had won. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never be the same.